guys, welcome back to Room 237 and back with another review. And this review will round off and end my reviews for Stephen Mina's Martin Bristol or a Malevolence trilogy. Uh, Recently, I think the past week, I have reviewed Stephen Mina's 2004 film, A Malevolence, his 2010 prequel follow-up, Bereavement. And I was going to buy this third film, but I saw I could watch it for free on YouTube. And I already watched it a little ways before I realized that YouTube did heavily censor it. Both some of the blood and gore and the kills and some of the nudity. And it was very hard to watch because every 10-15 seconds there was an overlay ad or there was a regular ad. So it took quite a while to watch. I do kind of wish I bought it because I would have just bought the single Blu-ray with all three films, just I guess to upgrade these, because I would consider myself a fan of the first film. I actually really do like this a lot. If you go back to my review of this, I started off as, first time I saw it, I turned it off, appreciated it more the second time around, and the last time, I actually really enjoyed it. I would call this pretty derivative. I mean, its influences are very apparent, almost blatant. It shines right through. But it does have good atmosphere, and it is well made for its very low budget. And it does use its influences well, I thought. With Bereavement, much bigger budget, but we're going into more generic territory. Meant to be an origin story, which I'm not really the biggest fan of. But I thought it could have been interesting to focus on these two and how Martin came to be. But I think they focused on the Alexandra Daddario story a little too much. So it became less of a character study than I think originally intended. So now with 2018's Malevolence 3 Killer. With this, we went full on generic. This is about as generic slasher sequel as you can get. It takes the Halloween 2 approach, we're picking right up where the last one left off and continuing the story. But it feels like Halloween 4 or 5. The characters, not really much to them. A lot of them are just a body count fodder. And I'm not going to judge the kills too much because I couldn't really see them. The ones they did show, alright, yeah, there's some blood, but I'm not sure what else is there because I think YouTube censored it all out. Acting was fairly generic as well, nothing super amazing, which I'll get to the cast in a minute. And yeah, just but everything that was derivative in this film but done well, here I don't even think derivative covers it. I mean, it's derivative without the inspiration, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, this was very derivative, but he made something cool with it and atmospheric. Here, there's no atmosphere. And almost borders on, like, a ripoff. And it's kind of sad to say because if I had liked this film, I probably would have called this a decent trilogy. It's not to say I hated this film, but I can't really call myself a fan of it. Probably the most, the biggest compliment I can give it is Stephen Mina must have really wanted this film to happen. I mean, this was self-funded. He, like the others where he wrote, directed, produced, scored, edited, here he has even more credits. He has all those. He's got directed photography. I mean, he almost willed this out of the air. And I'm not sure how long he actually wanted to make this. Like, I'm not sure how long after bereavement he wanted to make this. Or if it, I don't really know the history of it, like if it got pushed back or if it got greenlit and shelved. I'm not really sure about that. Nor am I really sure what the budget was. I think it was more similar to this film, which started off at 70,000 but ended up at 200,000 by the time they got into post. So the biggest compliment I can give it was Stephen Mina definitely wanted this movie to happen, and he made it happen. I would have rather he waited another 8 years, because that was the gap between the two films. I would have gladly waited another 8 years for him to really polish it and make it more like the first film. At least in tone and how effective it was and how well made it was. This did have a very rushed, now or never type feel to it, which is never good. Another thing I noticed, Brian O'Halloran was served as a producer of this as well. And I guess he was in the cast as just police, one of the many film cast members listed as police. I don't know how I missed him if he was on camera, because I mean, Clerks is one of my favorite films of all time. I love his character Dante. Somehow I missed him. I'm going to have to get Stephen Mina's film Brutal Massacre, which one of these had a trailer for it. I'd seen it at the store, I don't know how many times. Did not realize it was a Stephen Mina film. It does look pretty funny. I mean, it's got Brian O'Halloran, it's got Gunnar Hansen. It does look like something I should check out, so I will be picking that up at some point. But it has Katie Gibson as our lead, Elle. Kevin McKelvey as Sergeant Perkins. He returns from the first film. As does Jay Cohen, playing Martin, again, for the first film. Playing a 17-year-old, 14 years after he played the 17-year-old in that film. Luckily, he hasn't aged too much. And again, I'll say this again, and I said it in my review for the first film. I saw one website, and I tried looking into it more, and I can't find anything other than that website. Apparently, Jay Cohen, who played Martin, has passed away since 2018. If so, that's a shame. That's sad. I didn't see why or how. Why? I couldn't find how. I couldn't find any other website. So if that is true, may he rest in peace. That is unfortunate. As for the sort of genre favorite cameo or supporting role, like Michael Biehn in the second film, this has Adrienne Barbeau, one of my favorite horror actresses of the 80s. I mean, Creepshow, The Fog, Swamp Thing, Catwoman in Batman the Animated Series. Always great to see Adrienne Barbeau. Ashley Wolf as Martin's mother. Victoria Mina, who I think is the daughter of Stephen Mina, actually. This was her only film role so far. There's no trivia about her, but I'm pretty sure it's the director's daughter. One thing I thought was funny was, I think this is still, I mean, it's continuing the story directly after the first film. So it takes place in 99, yet there's a Jeep with like a HD GPS, whatever. That wasn't around back then. But everything else does feel like 99. I mean, they're using house phones, they got flip phones, which still might have been a little too early for that. Even though I think they had flip phones in the first film. But yeah, sadly, this movie just feels rushed. I mean, they definitely go for the Halloween 2, pick up directly, continue the story, which, probably the best way to go with it. But again, it feels like Halloween 4 or 5. There's like nothing characters. They do try to give some of them personalities. I mean, the lead is into classical music, plays the violin and the piano. She has an ex-boyfriend, even though I don't even think we get into their drama because she doesn't want to talk to him. It's kind of a sorority house slasher, or if it's not a sorority house, there's 3 college girls that rent the house with the lead and 2 of her friends. One of the friends is like the college slut who's only banging this guy because she thinks he's going to be a doctor. Then while they're having sex, she asks what kind of doctor, and he says nurse, and she gets all grossed out. Even gets mad, was like, drives his dad's car. She has one of the bloodier deaths, at least from what I could see. And the movie's basically bouncing back and forth between Martin kind of hiding out in this sorority house. Well, first it opens up with the fate of the mother and daughter from this film, which they pull in Alien 3. They kill them off right in the beginning. Sergeant Perkins and his team find them. They look into all the missing kid files. They match a photo of Martin from Bereavement with, a picture of younger Martin when he was first abducted. He says, this has got to be our kid. And one thing I'll say, it does have scenes from both of these. I mean, it picks up right after this. Feels more connected to that film than this one, but it does have some clips or references to this film. So this movie does feel like a combination of both of them. Like they're both leading up to this, which obviously is a trilogy, but the way it fuses both films with clips and exposition or flashbacks, I would say that was fairly well done. So then they try to find Martin's family, which they find his mother. His grandmother's played by Adrienne Barbeau. They think Martin's going to go after them, but you find out, they don't even find out till much later that that's not his childhood home. They moved shortly after he was abducted. So now the college girls are at the sorority house, and that becomes the slaughterhouse. There's even a Tommy Doyle type character, Victoria, played by Victoria Mina. She's just like a neighbor girl that Elle knows and hangs out with. By the end of the film, she's babysitting her. So, continuing with more just Halloween inspiration, I guess, has kind of a Tommy Doyle type character. Almost ends just like Halloween, just like this one did, but it did keep going with him being hurt. Then they go to look and he's gone, which this one almost looks exactly. I don't know why I held this up. Except this one looks almost exactly like Halloween. Shot, fall, look down, he's gone, cue the music. It does have a lot of the same music cues as this one did, like the little piano piece when Martin's around. This one has way more jump scares too. I mean, like showing down a hallway, character on the phone, black blur goes across the camera, loud, loud sting of music. So a lot more jump scares, no atmosphere. And I mean, you get a decent body count. I mean, you got the mother daughter from the first film. You have the guy he steals the van from. Uh, during his initial escape. Then the bunch of people at the sorority house, like the landlord, the nurse, her slutty friend, her other friend, uh, the girl's mom. So I mean, you have a decent sized body count. I don't even think that's all of them. I don't really know what else to say about this film. It goes exactly how you're gonna think. Which I did think it was kind of funny how into the third act, that's when Perkins finds out, wait, this isn't the home you lived in when he was abducted? No. Like the the a missing kid flyer that you looked at didn't say was abducted from, didn't realize it. So that was kind of a plot hole that I picked up on. Also, like Halloween, he's a kid that since he was 6 years old, he wasn't institutionalized like Michael Myers was, but held captive. Didn't have any kind of education other than killing, tracking, covering your tracks. But he's able to steal vehicles, and that's exactly what he does. When he flees the farmhouse or the slaughterhouse from this film, he steals a guy's van and drives a bunch of miles to his hometown, or where he was abducted. Like when Michael leaves the institute, goes all the way back to Haddonfield. So a lot of plot points are still the same or very similar to Halloween. Some newer parts of the score, like the score that they added, I thought, sounded really good. Like the scene where Elle kind of Halloween, Friday the 13th style goes through the house and finds all the dead bodies. I liked that music. When they're initially being chased by Martin through the field, I liked that. The music when, Perkins shoots him and he falls down the cellar stairs. Then when he goes to look and he's gone, Halloween style. Like that music. And, spoilers here. I should have said spoilers before. I don't think we're going to get a Malevolence 4 because, I mean, this is being called a trilogy, and this one was already hard enough to make. But it does end open-ended. It ends pretty much the same as this one. Whereas, we see we see his mother have a dream about Martin showing up and killing Adrienne Barbeau, then herself, but it was a dream. Then we see Elle staying with her mother. She goes to bed, and I think Martin either like jumps on top of her with a knife, or like we see him put his hand over her mouth or something. It ends with him about to attack her. Cut straight to black. So it still ends open-ended, actually in a bedroom, much like the ending of this film. So this movie doesn't really add much story-wise, or even for like a filmmaking standpoint. It took everything that was good about this film, or admirable about this film, or what made it seem less of just a blatant ripoff or copycat about this film. It pretty much made it feel like a generic ripoff or copycat film, which is very unfortunate because I do like these two. As I said, I could tell that with this film we were getting a bit more generic. I mean, the more unique part would have been the story of these two, but it doesn't focus on it enough. And then here we go full blown uh, uh, full blown generic with all the, it's not even homage at this point like this one was. It's pretty much copying with just the generic feel of like Halloween 4 or 5. Almost not as throwaway as those films. And I mean, a lot of the kills are the same. I mean, he even kills one guy with a lawnmower blade. Of course, I couldn't see the actual kill because of YouTube. Like, the guy looks and we just get like a shot of his arm. Just so very Halloween-esque kills, like where it's just his arm about to come down. But Jay Cohen still did bring a good presence, very Michael Myers-esque, with the silence, the jumpsuit, the way he walks, the way he stabs, and everything. But he didn't wear a mask, which was odd, because even though he didn't wear a mask, we still just see his feet or his hands. I think they could have just gone all out and just showed the killer. Even kind of towards the end, when we start to see his face, he's shrouded by shadow quite a bit. It's not really up until like the confrontation scenes do we really get a good look at him. But he still did bring, a good intimidating presence. I thought it would have been more interesting if, since he's not masked, just see the killer. But oh well, I'm not sure what else to say about this movie. There really isn't much to it. And it is unfortunate because I've really grown to appreciate these two films. I never was the biggest fan of these until I just went back and rewatched them. Especially this film. I mean, for the longest time, I actually liked this one more. But I still consider myself, a fan of this film. And unfortunately, it lost all its low budget. It lost like the low budget feel to it, the atmosphere. The scares don't have like a genuine creepiness to them. And yeah, I mean, if you want to watch like a 80s throwback slasher from around this time, just watch Terrifier. I mean, I would say Terrifier accomplished a lot more than this did when it came out, but so yeah, it's although it feels like, I mean, it incorporates images and clips from these two films in a way to really make it feel like it's rounding everything off. It's like everything's been building up to this point. It does that very well. Just unfortunately, it just kind of ends with a dud. I wasn't a very big fan of this film, unfortunately. So I really don't think we're going to get a 4. If we do, I will be surprised. And if we do, I hope Stephen Mina will take his time more. Again, just judging that this was a now or never type situation, because that's really what it feels like. Story-wise, character-wise, kill-wise, just the way it's shot, the way it's made. The only nuances it really brought, I guess, would have been new elements of the score, like I mentioned. So yeah, unfortunately, this was a very underwhelming of ending to the Martin Bristol trilogy. And I do think Martin Bristol could have been a new face of modern horror, like how we have Freddy, Jason, Leatherface. So we have all those guys for the 80s. I think Martin Bristol could have been up there with Jigsaw or the new Pennywise or Art the Clown from Terrifier. I guess Annabelle. I mean, she is iconic, but like newer people of like the modern era had these films taken off more, and maybe if this had a better finale, but I still will consider myself a fan of this film. This one wasn't bad enough to diminish my thoughts on that. So that's it. The last review of Stephen Mina's A Malevolence trilogy. Sorry, this one wasn't very informative, but there really wasn't much to talk about. But anyway, thank you for watching.